One photograph. That is all it took. One photograph posted online, and suddenly millions of people could not stop talking about Caitlin Clark. Not because of a record she broke, not because of a buzzer beater, not because of some highlight reel moment from the court. They were talking about her arms. They were talking about the way she looked standing on the sideline cheering for her old team, and how something had clearly, visibly, dramatically changed. Over 3 million people saw that photo within days, and the internet absolutely lost its mind. But here is the thing nobody was asking. Why did she do it? The answer to that question is so much more powerful than the transformation itself. Let us go back to where this all started, because you cannot understand who Caitlin Clark is today without knowing where she came from. She was born on January 22, 2002, in Des Moines, Iowa. She was the middle child, sandwiched between an older brother and a younger one. And if you have ever been the middle kid in a competitive household, you already know what that does to a person. You spend your whole childhood trying to prove something, trying to keep up, trying to win. That was Caitlin's entire childhood in a single sentence. She grew up in West Des Moines, and from the time she was barely old enough to walk, competition was just the air she breathed. Her dad, Brent, had played basketball and baseball in college. Her grandfather coached football. Sports were literally in her blood. But even in a family like that, Caitlin stood out. By the time she was 5 years old, she could dribble a basketball like someone twice her age. And it was not just basketball. She was one of those rare kids who seemed to be great at everything she tried. In high school, she scored 26 goals in just 6 soccer games. Her coach believed she could have gone all the way to Division I soccer if she had chosen that path. She played volleyball, tennis, softball, golf. She even played piano. She could have taken any of those roads, but basketball was different. Basketball called to her in a way nothing else did, and she had to fight just to be on the court. When she was young, there was no girls' league for her age group, so her dad put her in boys' leagues instead. Think about what that means for a little girl who just wants to play. Every single day she had to earn her spot. Every single practice she had to prove she belonged. That experience, fighting for her place before she was even a teenager, built something inside her that no coaching staff could ever teach. It built toughness, the kind of toughness that does not break under pressure. It only gets harder. By the time she was 13, she had joined a top travel basketball team and was already playing against girls older than her. A coach who watched her back then remembered her hitting a step-back three-pointer and then throwing a perfectly placed pass in the same possession, both plays on a different level from every other kid on that court. That same coach said most kids, after a big win, want to go celebrate. Caitlin just wanted to keep playing. She just wanted to get better. And that was the version of her that showed up to Dowling Catholic High School and completely rewrote the record books. On February 4, 2019, as a junior, she scored 60 points in a single game. 60! She dropped 25 of them in just the first quarter. She hit 13 three-pointers, which was the most ever in Iowa high school history at that point. And here's the detail that says everything. After the game, even the student section from the other team lined up to get her autograph. The people she had just beaten wanted her signature. That is how special she already was. As a senior, she kept going, averaging over 33 points per game and finishing her high school career with more than 2,500 total points. She was named Miss Iowa Basketball. She won the Gatorade Player of the Year award. She was everything.
Then came college, and this is where the story really takes off. In November of 2020, with almost no fans in the building because of COVID restrictions, 18-year-old freshman Caitlin Clark walked into Carver Hawkeye Arena for her debut and played like someone who had been doing this for 10 years. 27 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, shooting nearly 60% from the floor. She was the best player on the court in her very first college game. Her teammates that night would go on to become some of her closest companions through one of the most electric runs in women's basketball history. But that first night, everyone already knew. This was something different. This was someone special. She finished that freshman season as the leading scorer in all of Division I basketball, not just women's basketball, all of it. No freshman had ever done that. Not a man, not a woman, nobody. She hit 116 three-pointers in 30 games, nearly 4 every single night. She averaged over 26 points per game across the whole season, and she was barely old enough to vote. Awards poured in, records fell, and Iowa basketball, which had been quietly fading from national attention, suddenly became must-watch television again. Her sophomore year, she did something that had genuinely never been done before in Division I women's basketball. She led the entire country in both scoring and assists at the same time. Think about how unusual that is. Scorers score, passers pass. That is how basketball has always worked. Players specialize. But Caitlin did not follow those rules. She averaged 27 points and 8 assists per game simultaneously. Defenders threw double teams at her, triple teams at her, entire game plans designed just to wear her down. She still found the open teammate. She still made the impossible pass. She still scored when she needed to. She played like she could see the whole floor differently from everyone else. And as her reputation grew, so did the physical punishment she had to take. Other teams got rough with her on purpose. They shoved her, they grabbed her jersey, they bumped her at full speed. Coaches designed defensive schemes specifically meant to exhaust her. Possession after possession, shot after shot, they came at her, and she kept getting back up, every single time. That combination of skill and toughness made people not just in Iowa, but all across the country tune in to watch her. TV ratings climbed, arenas sold out, news crews flew in. She did not just make her team better, she made the whole sport of women's basketball bigger. By 2023, she did the impossible. Iowa had not made the Final Four since 1993, 30 years of coming up short. Caitlin ended that drought with some of the most breathtaking tournament performances anyone had ever seen. Against Louisville in the Elite Eight, she dropped 41 points along with 12 assists and 10 rebounds, a triple-double with 41 points. That had never happened in the history of the NCAA tournament, men's or women's. Then, against South Carolina, the defending national champions who had not lost in 42 straight games, she did it again. Another 41 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, and she scored or assisted on every single point Iowa scored in the fourth quarter. Every single one. South Carolina had the best defense in the country, and Caitlin Clark made them look helpless. Iowa made the national championship game that year, and it broke a lot of hearts. They lost to LSU. Caitlin hit 8 three-pointers in that final game, breaking a championship record that had stood since 1990. She scored 30 points, and it still was not enough. The look on her face when the buzzer sounded said everything words could not. She had done all she possibly could, but it was not enough that night. And for someone who hates losing as much as Caitlin Clark does, that loss lived in her. It motivated her into her senior year in a way that was almost frightening to watch.
Her senior season was historic. On February 15, 2024, she passed the all-time NCAA scoring record in Division I basketball, not just women's basketball. Again, all of it. She passed a record that had stood for decades. And she did not just quietly tip over the line. She hit a deep three from well behind the arc. The crowd exploded, and she finished that night with 49 points, the most ever scored in a single game in Iowa history. Then, just 2 weeks later, she broke the overall Division I scoring record held by Pete Maravich, a record that had stood for 54 years. She became the highest scorer in the history of college basketball, men or women, full stop. By the time the WNBA draft came around in April 2024, there was no suspense about what was going to happen. The Indiana Fever selected her first overall, and the whole sports world knew her arrival in the professional league was going to be something. But nobody knew just how enormous it would get. Her jersey became the best-selling in the entire WNBA, with sales up over 1,000%. Attendance at games featuring her jumped 88%. More than 700,000 fans voted her into the All-Star game during her rookie season, the most ever. Wherever she went, people followed. They called it the Caitlin Clark effect, and nobody had ever seen anything like it in the history of women's sports. But here is the part the highlight reels do not always show. Her first WNBA season was brutal. Not because she was not talented enough, but because veteran players came after her from day one. They were physical with her in ways that surprised even people who had watched her get roughed up in college. She was fouled 111 times in her rookie season, making her the most fouled rookie the league had ever seen. Some of those hits were clearly deliberate. They were messages. One moment in particular became impossible to ignore. A player on another team delivered a shoulder shot to Caitlin that knocked her clean off her feet. It was called a flagrant foul eventually, but it was more than just a penalty. It was a statement about how the league intended to treat her. She later said openly that opponents got away with things against her that they probably would not have gotten away with against other players. She was not complaining, she was just telling the truth. She led the league in turnovers as a rookie. She missed 10 games due to injuries, more than she had missed in her entire 4-year college career combined. The WNBA was not college basketball. It was faster, harder, more physical, and every player on every team was already elite. There was no easy night. There was no off game where the competition just let you breathe. She could have been discouraged. She could have decided that surviving the season was good enough and worried about the physical stuff later. But that is not how Caitlin Clark is wired. She went back to her roots. She went back to that little girl who was playing in boys' leagues because there was no girls' league. She went back to that kid who did not want ice cream after a win. She just wanted to play harder. She decided she was going to change, not just work harder, but completely transform what her body could do. Together with Sarah Kessler, the Indiana Fever's head athletic performance coach, she built a new program from scratch, 4 to 5 days a week in the weight room. Not casual lifting, not going through the motions, a completely custom-designed training system built specifically for what her game needed. She focused on single-leg exercises to build the kind of explosive strength that lets you stop and start faster than your defender expects. She worked on isometric training, which builds the kind of balanced, grounded strength that keeps you standing when someone bigger hits you at full speed. Because one of the things that had hurt her all year was that she tended to play too upright, which made it easy for defenders to knock her around. She fixed that. She also identified that her left arm was noticeably weaker than her right for certain passing situations, and she trained that specific weakness until it was no longer a weakness. No shortcuts, no cheating, just work.
She also added creatine to her routine. It is a completely natural compound that helps muscles recover faster and grow stronger, and it is widely used by professional athletes across every sport. Some people online had opinions about it, because people online always have opinions. But Caitlin was not doing this for opinions. She was doing it because she needed to change, and she committed to that change completely. Then came that photo on March 7th, 2025. Caitlin was at a Big Ten tournament game between Iowa and Ohio State. She was just there to support her old team. She was not playing. She was not even wearing a microphone. She was just standing on the sideline, cheering. And a sports photographer caught her in that moment, and something about the image made people stop scrolling. She looked different, stronger, more powerful. The caption someone put on it said something about the weight room, and within days more than 3 million people had seen it. Comments poured in from fans, from sports figures, from people who had never watched a single WNBA game in their lives. Dave Portnoy posted about it. ESPN brought it up on air. It trended for weeks. And through all of it, Caitlin said nothing. She did not post about it. She did not address it. She just let the world talk. That restraint says something important about who she is. She was not doing this for attention. She was not trying to go viral. She was trying to become someone her opponents could not push around anymore. Finally, nearly a month later, she appeared on a show with WNBA legends Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi, and the question everyone was waiting for finally got asked. She smiled and joked that it was just a camera angle and AI was getting out of control. The audience laughed, but then she got real. She admitted she had been in the weight room consistently and seriously. She said she genuinely enjoyed the work. She said getting stronger was something she had made a real priority. And just like that, the internet shifted from shock to admiration, because it was not a filter. It was not an illusion. It was earned. Her coach Stephanie White said later that Caitlin figured out almost immediately after her first season what she needed to fix, and she went and fixed it. That is what separates good players from great ones. The ability to look honestly at your own weaknesses and attack them without making excuses. Caitlin Clark has been doing that her whole life. She did it in the boys' leagues as a little girl. She did it after losing the national championship. She did it after her brutal rookie season. She just keeps looking at what needs to change, and then she goes and changes it. And that is really what this story is about. Not the photo, not the arms, not the viral moment. This is a story about a person who has been refusing to settle for whatever she already is, since she was 5 years old, bouncing a basketball around her house and throwing her brother into a wall because she needed to win. Everything she has done, every record she has broken, every transformation she has made has come from that same fire that was inside her before anyone knew her name. She also started the Caitlin Clark Foundation in October 2023 and raised over $100,000 for a local food pantry in just a few months, while also helping kids access sports, education, and nutrition programs. She had not even played a single professional game yet. She was already trying to make the world around her better. So next time someone shows you that viral photo and asks what happened to Caitlin Clark, you tell them the truth. What happened is what always happens with her. Someone tried to slow her down. Someone tried to make her feel like she did not belong. And she went away quietly and came back stronger. That is not a transformation. That is just Caitlin Clark being exactly who she has always been. If this story fired you up the way it fired me up when I put it all together, please hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it tells the algorithm that stories like this one deserve to be seen by more people. Share this video with someone who loves sports, or someone who needs a reminder that the people who get knocked down the hardest are often the ones who end up standing the tallest. And if you are not subscribed yet, please do it now and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. We have more stories coming about athletes and moments and transformations that will absolutely blow your mind. The comments section is open. Tell me what you think about Caitlin Clark and what she is building. I read every single one. See you in the next video.